within the structures, within like, the science of neutrality, the energies of neutrality, within a structured, claim, if that is to be like, directed and pinpointed and focused upon, it's like, okay, what are you really saying? That's like a neutral golden question you could ask with anything. Like, what are you really saying? Well, just to simplify it, me contemplating the Vaishnavite tradition for the last 6+ years, because I got introduced to it because I studied multiple different things, and that being with a full heart open, I obviously that was the path for me. And me neutrally still participating with it. So it's not that I'm not negatively opposing Vaishnavism at all. So don't interpret it like that. I'm constructively trying to harmonize and be more compatible with it within the truths of the modern reality, where the reality is at right now, and how like the science of, the Vedantic tradition, etc., is in parallel correlations to, like, all these different types of sciences and everything else. So what am I really saying? Like, what are you really saying? So it's like if I were to like compile an oppositive discussion for the purpose and the intention of trying to solve something, it's not negatively or deconstructively opposing Vaishnavism. I'm not doing that. So if you're interpreting that on a two-dimensional mind frame, that has to be transcended swiftly. It has to be transformed, transmuted swiftly, with just someone explaining where they're coming from. So it's like, where are you really coming from? And that's where tolerance comes into play, because with me, like, neutrally contemplating what Vaishnavism is for me within the last 6 years, upon me neutrally, casually, harmonically, and in higher balance studying Vaishnavism within 6 years respectively, I came up with the question 6 years ago, just kind of being on par with the whole energy, the flavor, the culture of what the Vaishnavism is. I'm not opposing you. Like, so it's like, for me to bring structure, what is my oppositive claim in a standard balance? That's not opposing them in a negative way. It's just seeing a different field of diversity that is simultaneously in harmony with the roots of the Vedic cultures, and in differentiation. Differentiation meaning how we could lose our roots, and then come back to a different spiritual roots, which is like, the whole Vedic thing. But like, sorry to like be so draggy-on-y, because I'm like left-handed and I'm right hemisphere. So like, I feel like I come from a spiritual chaotic place, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, spiritual masculinity, material femininity, black, and then white is spiritual femininity, masculine, or material masculinity. So the black, white, and them having their different tiers, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white. If you caught game on the earlier videos. So and then the dualities of that, in how like all of that is being used. So it's like 8 times 2 is 16, because one denomination of a 50-50 principle is like, how we're using like the free energy matter within the neutrino ocean of that which everything is, because we're trying to define what the ocean of consciousness is. We've identified it and recognized it as something of a neutrino ocean that we're inside of. And neutrally, the Vaishnavite tradition could like harmonize with that within its Bhagavatams, its Upanishads, and Puranas, etc., and the other Shastras, Sutras, and Agamas, etc., and other Gitas, thousands of other Gitas, songs, and its other just Vedantic traditional, scholarly, encyclopedic, rudimentary sequential like text, because like, everything has that, core syllabus of a higher chronology of a sequence to set it out in the most harmonic way possible, particularly from the top down. Because 6 years ago, I came up with this question for me to have a structured quote unquote argument, and quote, nothing is an argument, it's just a discussion, because we're discussing how we're living and becoming, and seeing how there's a different purpose being expressed, because like even if we lose hopelessness, life is still moving on, but at whose accord, what accord? So 6 years ago I asked the question, so it's like, what are you really saying? So 6 years ago I asked the question. I was like, if God is everything, then why would you exclude anything apart from God as not God when God is everything? But you saying God is not that, which God is supposed to be everything, then how could you not connect the dots to anything connected to God? That was my main premise of my main argument 6 years ago. So I've had this quality. So this is why I really don't give a fuck about like how you fucking hear it, respectively, with respects and hearts and like intentions and like passion and like yearning for God, etc. Duh. And I don't care how it looks or sounds and how you interpret it. I don't care where you're at in your rhythm of your life. I don't care how condensed and how compressed in a detrimental, compartmentalized way with social, like detrimental society, social engineered strategic like agendas from certain sectors and parsecs of consciousness that you don't necessarily know like how it has influence over you and power over you, and how on a bigger macro bigger picture level God is like supposedly like beyond the good and evil. So we're understanding, why is God doing this to us? And if any of what I said, like if any like quote unquote Vaishnavism end quote, and I'm speaking of this in a neutral like way, so this is the main premise of it. It's like if they can't see like if they can't see how something connects to what they're saying is everything, then that's their own like absence of a piece of understanding, and that absence of a piece of understanding, that is in tandem with the lack of experience, or a lack of, you haven't developed to understand why things are the way they are, because everything has its own reasonings. So if you can't connect anything to Vaishnavism, then you're kind of like contradicting yourself, because you're saying something isn't ultimate completion. And all of these like literatures, all of them that you could think of, and all the experiences and all the preservations and all the essences of the transformations and the recreations and the birthings of all the infinite Brahmas, isn't that tailored by one ultimate narrowed down author in its own deductive reasoning in different contexts, deductive reasoning in just the reverse engineer sequence of material creation, material preservation, material transformation, spiritual creation, spiritual preservation, and spiritual transformation? It's all tailored on a reverse engineer level by the one source of it all, which we don't have to get caught up in the name, but it self-identifies, and we understand it as Krishna, to the Vaishnavites. Because like, I'm not opposing you, I'm with you guys. I'm trying to be harmonic with cleaning my plate, chanting the mantra, experimenting with it to see if it really works, and trying to clean my plate for a long-term cleansing is how I'm understanding that. So within you misperceiving of me opposing Vaishnavism is false, I'm trying to like harmonize it and show constructivities of a bigger truth of this reality, why it is the way it is, and connecting it with that in itself, and seeing how that transforms at a bigger large. So the main premise is like, it's just to see where everybody is at individually, within the times that we're in, because it's kind of a blessing and a miracle for us to be alive with something that's supporting us, that we're having a struggle path towards for whatever reason, based on what we are and what we kind of signed up for, based on, I guess, how our soul ultimately chose this vessel. Like, we would have to have a survey for the Vaishnavites, like how did your soul choose this vessel, and what is the destiny and fate of it, using Vaishnavite insights and wisdoms alike and non-alike, because there's still like other bodies of intelligence and thinking that it's not necessarily identified and recognized as that, but it's still its own like train of bodies of knowledge within other soul tribes. So within that, it's like let's see, and I shouldn't be drinking this, but yeah, so I'm not opposing them. I'm just saying like like I'm just trying to even out the logic, you know, like why be caught up in the social engineered rigidity programs of, you know, the times that are obsolete, the times that are outdated. You know, the Vedas are teaching us how things are transforming in its own subtle nuanced level of that in itself, because is it not like, is it not everything though? That's the main premise question in neutrality, harmony, and balance within your culture. So I'm transforming it like no thing. It's simultaneously everything and it's not a thing, because God, why wouldn't God not be everything and no thing at the same time? Because if something could be that, which by deductive reasoning on a spiritual, you know, hyper you know, energetic mechanical level, it already is that, because it's taking up such an expression in a format of a different format mode of a consciousness of a space where it is no thing and something and everything and anything and potentiality, and everything else on the external is inanimate, and it's not God, it's lesser of God, lesser. The more out, the more lesser it is God. The more in, the more it is more of God. So we have, our humans are having a deep, you know, spiritual oscillation struggle of just the deep energy mechanics of the chaos matter and the harmonic preserved energy matter. Because I'm grounding, simplifying, have been low key for the last 6 years, have been, you know, already transformed Vaishnavism, but it's just unknown of, like, this little mini transmission is been something that has already been in the works that we're unaware of, but it's already been downloaded in the earth, and now it's coming to your attention and your awareness. So we have to be like kind of modest and kind of not underestimate anything, because we don't necessarily know what's quote unquote out there and in there. But the more out, the more in according to God's eyes, because God is a bigger broadband range of a spirit, so he could see a different, higher, different context of a different duality, black, white, a higher octave of the main four, you know, dimension densities. And the dimension densities are, you know, the macro densities that encapsulate all the dimensions, and that's the top four, and within that God could see that. So it's like, the main premise of me quote unquote opposing the Vaishnavisms, end quote, energetically, neutrally, standardly, for a balanced intention and resolve and proposition and insight and understanding, intelligence, knowledge, and comprehension. We're seeing, why wouldn't God be everything? You know, why wouldn't God be that? Why are you underestimating what God could be? So that's me asking every Vaishnavite in pure neutrality, you know, and obviously honoring and recognizing what Chaitanya did from birth to finish, and how he paraded through certain cities, and he was just, you know, blissful audiences of beings, not necessarily girls or guys. And on a spiritual level, everybody's androgynous, everybody's spiritually a male and a female. So it's not that, like, it was just in the end, neutrally, like, why was Chaitanya like intoxicating beings with his big ass aura? Because it was a deeper resonance that had a different correspondence, coordinates, resonance matching system to corresponding the different as above, so belows, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, and God coming from the ultimate Turiya, and that reflecting on the downpour, down droplet, down driplet, down outlet, inlet, input, output of a spiritual, mechanical, you know, grand universal, omniversal level. The Chaitanya, you know, what he was in his aura, he was multidimensional. That was the beginning of multidimensionality and just the mental, like, understanding of it. But obviously we're trying to more or less live with that. But what he did, it was correspond heaven, you know, because why wouldn't Chaitanya express God if he is a God incarnation? So look at, I'm already like low key there. I'm already giving little dribble, grizzle, schlab, like, you know, treats and hints and little chocolate chips and little, you know, candy corns and little watermelon bites and little sweet fruit bites. I'm giving little clues on how I'm already like transcending the Bhagavatam, because I've already been doing this for the last 6 years. I've been within open heart, earnestly, with mental passion, earnestly, 6 years Vaishnavism. But that don't even fucking mean shit, because that's just the material surface level. We're more than that. The ironically, the Vaishnavism is connecting to the Vedanta. Krishna in the Gita says, I'm the compiler of Vedanta, and within Vedanta it's teaching what Turiya is, it's teaching what deep sleep is, it's teaching what the dream world is, it's teaching what the waking reality is, the four main dimension densities. And with that, why do the Vaishnavites ride off on a standard casual level like the Advaita Vedanta when it's kind of low key the same stuff in different expressions? So I'm like modern. I'm updating and being modern with Advaita Vedanta from a journey level, entry level position, and the Vaishnavism within recognizing all the sciences on a entry level modern journey level position, because like all the new people need simplified ways to understand it, and for me to simplify it like that with 6 years of quality content, that's why I could like, you know, confidently, officially, and proudly say what I say. I could actually back my claims, and we could see not anybody being brave enough to fucking, you know, answer this ultimate intelligence in the galaxy, proven within the track record and if you read between the lines. So that's the main premise of it. So it's like, what specifically are you confused about? If everything is so like if there's any Vaishnavite that wants to like form a false, like, you know, inaccurate, detrimental, distorted, you know, way of thinking, and probably it's probably social engineered and GMO'd leaning, how could you say that I'm wrong when I'm trying to say that God is everything, infinitely, eternally, within the ultimate bliss and the extreme polarity of that? He somehow balanced the chaos and the shadows of all that. Why wouldn't God be that, you know? So the main premise of this is just saying that in different, like, obviously in different ways. So that's been in the works for like and I don't care how it looks, I don't care how it sounds, because this is the purpose of life, is to like let your truth connect to heaven. Let your truth be a ladder. Let your truth be a ladder to heaven, the real heaven, not the GMO heaven. So it's time to be modern and like modest too, obviously, because life, like, I could die any day, you know? And what would I be known for? Well, whatever I left over, you know? And how will I preserve that? How will I ask Mahavishnu and all the things, like, on a spiritual unlinear level, what is below Mahavishnu and what is above Mahavishnu? Well, what would be above Mahavishnu would be like the Balaram, you know, the Subhadadada. I think that's the you know, the higher self of Radhe, and you know the Jagannath, you know. So I'm looking at those as like, you know, not necessarily human concepts. I'm trying to look at those as concepts of consciousness itself, obviously, and seeing how like what really is in our favor to help us preserve everything that we live, and why is God sending us, like, what is God's ultimate test for us, you know? What is God's ultimate test for us? So like the title of this video is the main premise to form a you know, mature discussion against, you know, where Vaishnaivism, excuse me, Vaishnavism could be like not necessarily modern, you know, and how some people could still have, like, you know, certain types of like GMO egos respectively, and I can't be too harsh because I could have came from that life. I could have participated in this tough extreme polarity of Maya, of samsara, which I like originally like prove in different videos within the last 6 years. I probably have like 200 videos, each an hour a piece, based on just everything collected, you know, quality too. So like in terms of quantity, I'm already like in par and in tandem with all these speakers who've been doing it for even 10-20 years, because I found my own rhythm. Because even before the 6 years, like 12 years, I think the Buddhism, I started studying like Buddhism got introduced to me 12 years after Christianity, and from Buddhism was just like, after Buddhism was just like, you know, standard science and literature, like Dan Brown books, and me reading like time travel books when I was like, you know, like even like around 10 years ago, just because I was doing like a college public speaking project, and I chose that book, you know. So I've been speaking of this in the last 6 years, guys. So please be mature in respects and neutrality. Thank you, guys.